Hey guys, welcome to the Wild Bit Show. I'm Meghna,
And I'm Upamanyu.
and we have got a great show planned for you. We are obviously going to be talking about the headline topic, which is how climate change virus is sparing no one. It has reached the ends of the earth. We are also going to be talking about how drones have become a permanent fixture in Queensland, Australia. But despite the drones becoming a permanent fixture, are the shark nets still being used? What else do we have on the roster, Roots?
We also have a story from Amazon, and I think we touched on this a couple episodes ago as well, where carbon credits is being used as this commodity again. So that has led to some pretty predictable but unfortunate outcomes for the indigenous people and indigenous lands. We'll be talking about that. We are also talking about wildlife corridors and how scientists are working towards reducing some of the risks in wildlife corridors. And of course, we have some exciting new species tidbits, and we also have some other smaller news items we'll cover if we find the time. Hmm.
Okay, so talking about the headline topic. So this is an article by the Nat Geo that has been published, which talks about how climate change is accelerating the global pathogen spread, urging the creation of early warning systems for animal viruses to avert pandemics. Nat Geo explorer Jane Younger encountered this in Antarctica, a fast warming continent acting as a canary in the coal mine for disease outbreaks. Younger, researching bird flu, received reports of dead crab eater seals, suggesting the virus had jumped species. So it's like jumped from birds onto seals, and that too all the way in Antarctica, like all the way there. This underscores how Antarctica's rising temperatures, twice the global average, will fuel emerging diseases over the next 50 years. Her team, part of Perpetual Planet Ocean Expeditions, investigated this. Navigating challenging icy waters, they faced a fragmented ice edge where they deployed a drone, locating a deceased crab eater seal partially frozen in ice. This vital research aims to understand climate change's impact on disease and mitigate future pandemic risks. Um, from this article, there are two things that we need to worry about. One, that diseases that already exist, like bird flu, has reached the ends of the earth. But secondly, when the sea ice would thaw, they say that there are viruses that are trapped inside the ice from like uh, thousands of years ago, and we're exposing those viruses that we have zero idea about when the ice warms up and it exposes those viruses. So there's a lot to consider and unpack when we talk about
Mm,
diseases in Antarctica.
I mean, yeah, I think permafrost, basically, melting the permafrost is the thing we are most worried about. I think scientists are most worried about as well, because as you said, like the permafrost contains all sorts of I mean, you remember the mammoth, baby mammoths? I think two specimens that were found in the permafrost, and how well preserved they were. So if they are that well preserved, then we can only imagine the viruses being as well preserved as well. And viruses can lay dormant for thousands of years, as you were saying. So that is a bit we want to worry about. We definitely have to worry about. But also, I think, how is this virus, like, how is the bird flu reaching Antarctica? It has to be through like the human ships and whatnot, right?
Yeah, but also, what is carrying the bird flu then? Like, even if it's going on ships, like it's not the humans.
Hmm.
So is it like frozen meat or frozen something that's but it can't be that either, because I mean the meat that you eat is always checked. So I'm really not sure how it's reaching the continent though.
Yeah, I think it's more of like the seals, um, because seals are traveling all over the world. I think that is the way it is reaching, or maybe through whales. Yeah, it is a curious case, like how I'm just trying to find if there is any mention of that. Um,
Yeah, let me also go through the article. But before I do, for the viewers, this is Jane Younger, whose research that we spoke about just now, who found out that the crab-eater seals are dying from bird flu. She's testing on the penguins, which is why she's holding a penguin in her hand. Um,
Yeah, and I think it's also mentioned in the article that since 2021, the H5N1 subtype has proliferated across continents, killing millions of birds and many thousands of marine mammals. So I think it is a case of the seabirds, then from seabirds going to marine mammals, and from marine mammals spreading like the marine mammals. So seabirds are obviously traveling the most in the ocean, the longest distances, and then they are being eaten by I'm sure by crab eater seals as well. Some birds are being eaten by them, and then that is being transferred to the other species in the Antarctic, which
Which
is sad. And
probably, yeah, it probably makes the most sense, the story that you said. I haven't found a mention yet, but this is them testing on the crab eater seal. So obviously they have to be careful because these seals are huge and they can attack. So this is how they're testing by, I think, they use those tranquilizer darts, yeah? Yeah, so
yeah,
the
yeah.
yeah, by using the tranquilizer darts, but they have to still be careful. So this is how they're testing for them.
Yeah, I think that's the only way to test on any large sort of carnivorous animal, mammal of any kind. Tigers are tested sort of that way as well. Shot from the sky in Africa. Lions and then tigers here are shot from the ground. And the notion, I think the notion that the public has to the general public who are not involved in conservation and these kinds of work, including us, we have to grasp is that there is a romantic notion of these pristine environments, and Antarctic and Arctic falls in them. you know Amazon is one of the other ones that we romanticize the idea of these places as being very pristine, very untouched. That's the word that is often used. Very untouched by humans. I think that notion is not true and hasn't been true for like almost 100 years now, because there's no place on earth that human footprints haven't touched, which can both be a thing like we can be proud of. Okay, we have explored the whole world, but also I think more so that we need to worry about that. Why do we need to go all these places? Um,
Yeah, I think that's a great point because that is how these packages are also sold. Like the packages
mhm.
to Antarctica or Alaska or anywhere else. They're like, oh, come to this remote wilderness or this remote untouched place and this pristine landscape. So that is how they sell the packages as well. That you're going to this place where you do not have humans, but also the rise of tourism in these places, especially I think the Arctic and Antarctic um, causes, I don't know if it has any direct harm, but definitely, like indirectly, the way that the Earth is warming up, it's warming up at the poles faster than it's warming up everywhere else. So that is why they're saying that Antarctica is one of the fastest warming places, which is really worrying because that's not how you want it to be. You don't want the poles to unfreeze first because that would lead to higher water levels, more diseases, lots of chaos, and no ice left for the animals to stay there. Like, the penguins need the ice, the seals need the ice, everything needs the ice to survive. So if there's no ice, then a lot of species are going to go extinct there.
Even on the North Pole, like the South Pole is like has the most ice, the frozen the most of the permafrost there, but or even in the North Pole, the polar bears and also the seals that live there, they need the frozen sea ice to hunt seals and the polar bears, I mean. And yeah, it is sad to see them. You have seen those pictures, right? The skinny polar bears and how
Oh
they're like
yeah, yeah,
struggling. They are
yeah.
very emotionally stirring, I would say that. um
Yeah, and I think,
yes.
yeah, I think in the north, with the polar bear, if the ice is thin, that basically puts their entire hunting skills, it tests it to the max, because they have to be able to traverse on that ice to get to their hunting grounds or be able to hunt. So it gets really hard for them if the ice is disappearing. But also, oops, I think what you were talking about, that is
mm,
exactly true. How these viruses are being spread. They're saying that the likely vectors are migratory birds. Some giant petrels and skuas breed in Antarctica or on sub-Antarctic islands and travel vast
mm,
distances as part of their migration, sometimes to South America and into Asia. Before returning south, their globe spanning journeys may have brought the virus in more than once, seeding it in new locations each time. So it is the mingling of these migratory birds in the areas which already had bird flu.
mm. This is concerning, because I think this is concerning in a different way as well, because I think the wildlife world, the natural world, even like humans, before we planned to and before we decided to settle down in one place, the natural world operates on migration patterns. So every animal is, and often large distances. So every animal, bird, fish is migrating from one place to the other. Um, and often these are places with heavy human habitation. So if we are not careful, not only about like how these interactions are, but also about like what we are throwing into our oceans, and what the scraps we are throwing into the ocean, because that's where all the garbage will go. Like if a meat batch of meat is affected, where will that meat go? Like likely to the ocean. And however much you conceal it into like a box or something like that, it will have a life, and it will break open, and the opportunistic you know animals there will feed on that. So I think that is something that is, I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe a group of scientists are considering it, but majority, I think, before having this discussion, I wasn't considering this could be a likely vector.
No, I think it is also that these birds that are long distance flying birds, they're also scavenging birds. So they probably would be feeding on either the smaller birds that have carried these bird flu, and they died. So they might be feeding on them, and that is how
Hmm.
they probably got it, and they survived enough to fly back. But then they were eaten, so it spread. And I think the concerning part here is also the fact that a lot of these a lot of these viruses can jump from species to species. Like, I mean, we obviously know with the pandemic that happened with COVID, that a lot of viruses can actually spread, because that is what they said about COVID-19, right? That it's jumped from bats onto us. So all of these viruses, they're really resilient, and they keep also keep getting, mutating into a better version. So it might not be as deadly in the beginning, or it might be as deadly and might get better, but it might also be like not deadly and keep getting deadlier, which is really worrying.
Yeah, I mean that is always true. Like viruses, Viruses is this, I don't know, viruses are these amazing but also very curious things, that how they work, and how they can, lie there dead for, thousands or even millions of years, and just reactivate, when the opportunity arises. So yeah, it is a very, curious thing. One of the most curious things, I think, found in nature, and that makes them extremely dangerous as well, because yeah, as you said, they can literally lie dormant in the permafrost, which is like, I don't know, is sounds so dangerous, like from thousands or even million years ago. I don't know. If a virus
Yeah,
comes, we will have no clue about that virus.
which is so strange, like when you find these fossilized remains, or these species that were just in the permafrost, when you thaw them, then those species or whatever, they're dead, but they remain beautiful. But with the virus, the fact is that even though you would thaw this permafrost and they would come back to life, which is so scary, that they don't die. They're just like, okay, I'm hibernating, you're putting me in ice, so let me just hibernate for now. But when you wake me up, I will wake up, even if it's after a million years.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't know what kind of resilience they have, but that
Yeah, no.
itself is, yeah.
Yeah, it is very curious thing, and I think the scientific community is sort of doesn't understand it fully as well. And what you literally just said, I think that was the premise of like a Dan Brown novel. I don't know if you've read that, but a
Inferno.
space. No, no, not Inferno, but um, a meteor from space comes to Earth, and that meteor has a virus or a bacteria that is so deadly that it can wipe out the entire human race, and like a astrobacteria kind of, or a astrovirus, and
Oh
then
man.
it was lying dormant in some kind of, in the meteor, and viruses can withstand like extreme temperature. They can be in space, like they can be in space. So nobody understands what viruses are, like how they came to be, but they're there.
Yeah, I think we don't give them enough credit, but like how humans think they're so superior, but the viruses are like not even visible, and they're way more superior. They're like, we've
Yeah.
got you, and you can't do anything about it. Like, you will take a long time to figure out why we're there, and you will still not have a perfect 100% cure for us. So if people didn't know, even a common cold is a virus, and now
Hmm.
we're used to a common cold. So when we get a common cold, we're like, okay, yeah, just take some paracetamol, or just have a lot of hot liquids and you'll be fine. But the cold is a virus that we just live with now, because we have no idea how to completely demolish it or remove it from our life. So we survive with it, which is really strange. I mean, because they just don't die. Like, we have no
Hmm.
100% cure. And I think, forget about the common cold, we know about HIV. Like, how many people have been suffering from how many years, like people have died. People who are suffering with it are tabooed in the society. And yet we don't have a cure. So viruses are way more resilient than we either imagine, or our capability is not to that level that we can actually completely eradicate viruses.
Hmm. Hmm. That is so true. That is so true. Um. Yeah. This is like, again, this was not on my radar, but this is so like new. I think new to science as well. You know, another thing that we have to keep on our radar, right? Um, which is, yeah, I don't know. It is very, yeah. Hope not hopefully, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of scientists are working towards a solution. They might have already, have some idea of how the solution would look like. and how we will tackle this. But I think one of the main things would be us um, making sure that, you know, these food cycles and these jumping of viruses from one to the other, we can put a rest to that bit.
I,
Yeah,
I don't know if that's possible. I honestly don't know. With viruses, it's really tricky. They're like, I think, 5 steps ahead of us. They just know where to go
that is also true. That is also true.
without any eyes, without anything. They,
Yeah.
I mean, they just know, and they're so sneaky because we can't see them. So they can be completely sneaky. They don't even
Mm,
have to be sneaky. Like they can be there, and we would not know.
yeah. Yeah. Speaking of being sneaky, something sneaky has been going on in the world of corporate and in the name of greenwashing as well. The term for it is carbon credits. It's a sham. It's a sham, I will say. But here's how it works. Basically, the corporates, the rich and famous, or even like people like us, can be like, we have this is our carbon footprint, and we want to be individuals that we want to feel like individuals who do not have a carbon footprint, and in that way feel good about ourselves that we are doing something for the planet. But we don't want to do anything towards it. What we want to do is, because we have money, we want to spend that money. And how do we spend that money? There are these organizations or companies that are selling carbon credits. And how they're selling carbon credits, they are planting a bunch of trees in a forest, and they're saying these trees in this much time will absorb these many tons of carbon approximately. So we can sell those many tons of carbon as a carbon credit. So if my carbon footprint is 3 tons a year, I will probably buy 30 carbon credits to offset me for 30 years or something like that. So this is how it works. But if you're like us, you'll be, instantly going, this sounds very, one, it sounds not even bare minimum, but two, it sounds very scammy, which it is.
It's just one of those feel good things, like, oh, I'm using all of this whatever plastic, and I'm going on like hundreds of flights in a year. Let me just like plant a few trees, or just click on that button that says that, do you want to offset your carbon by carbon credits? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm doing great for the planet. So you do that. So
Yeah.
it's more of a feel good thing than an actual thing that helps anyone
Yeah, and I
anywhere.
think more for billionaires who are like literally like, I think I read one article like calling some of these billionaires climate criminals, because they literally, like, I read an article of like one of the Kardashians, they wanted to eat a cheesecake or something like that, and they flew like 4 hours to Paris
Yes.
on their private jet. I mean,
Yep.
what the hell is that? Like, that is like literally like hundreds of tons of carbon released right there. But they can be like, okay, I have done this, so let me just buy 500 tons of carbon credits. So that means I am offset and I am doing well above and well, you know, you
Yeah,
know.
I think you bring that up, and that is so funny that they can have those kind of what would you say, wishes and tantrums, like those fancy things, that, oh, if I want to eat something, let me just fly halfway across the world and get it, instead of just
Mm.
trying to find something local. Like for us, it would be maximum like, okay, let's get this delivered probably
But
from
it is it
something.
is like it is like an extension of what we would do, right? If we want to eat something special, which is within the city as well, like we will travel a few hours to a fancy restaurant, or like a good, maybe a gelato place, or maybe a
A
good,
few hours, I don't think so. A few hours is asking too much. A few hours would probably happen like maybe once in a few months, but it would usually be within like a 30-minute radius if you're really craving for something. Like you really don't want to like travel like 4 hours if you want to have something right now.
Yeah, that is partially true, but I'm just saying that is just an extension of what we would do, hop onto our car because they have access to this airplane. They would be like, okay, let me hop onto the airplane, that kind of stuff. But what is happening as a result of this is a report from Mongabe, which is titled "How a Green Gold Rush in the Amazon Led to Dubious Carbon Deals on Indigenous Lands." And this is where the scammy part comes in. A Mongabe investigation found that companies lacking financial or technical expertise signed extensive carbon and biodiversity credit deals with indigenous communities in Brazil and Bolivia. So that's where the scammy part comes in, because obviously when once you start to and I think we have talked about this extensively in our previous episodes as well. Once something gets commoditized, then everyone is in, gets on that rat race to make it even more profitable every single day. So
Yeah,
this is what is happening.
and the sad part is the victims of this entire thing are actually the indigenous people. So the ones
Mm,
that actually do not even know what they're signing into. They're just made to sign, or mostly they're just told that if you sign this, it's good for you. So they believe and they sign, but they do not even know what they're signing up for.
yeah, it's the age old, I think, sneaky technique used by colonizers. It's we are these are the modern colonizers. You think you have rights, but really, you don't. So it goes on to say covering over 8.5 million hectares. And again, these numbers, sometimes when I read them, I cannot comprehend for the life in me. Like, these numbers are so incomprehensible in my mind, but
Yeah.
it is a real thing. 8.5 million hectares of vital rainforest.
That's
Oh my goodness.
huge, huge, huge,
That's,
huge land of anybody who knows what from an hectare to a hectare, and then millions, and then 8.5. So that
yeah,
itself
it
is
is.
just mind
The
blowing.
number is such a huge number. Like, I don't think you can count to 8.5 million in, like, in a day or something like that. But rainforests, million hectares, yeah, that is a huge space. The contracts granted exclusive rights to trade ecosystem services. However, many communities reported being rushed into signing, of course, because these are dubious companies, never giving proper informed consent, and not understanding the complex terms or even the companies involved. The promised projects completely failed to materialize Brazil, prompting communities to demand contract cancellation and a major carbon certifier to issue a cease and desist letter. Despite these failures, the scheme's initiators simply secured more deals in Bolivia. Brazil's Indigenous Affairs Agency has warned of legal insecurity, prompting an official inquiry. Again, anything when anything is commoditized, and I think we have talked about, like, human time and, you know time in general being commoditized, and how it has affected everything, literally. This being commoditized, I don't think it's surprising in a capitalistic society that we have built, that everyone is kind of going for it. um how do we stop this, like, because this is a
Yeah.
sham
the
in the
the
first
only
place.
the only way is maybe for these companies to say no to like big corporates or these the conglomerates that come to their country, but it's hard also, because they're getting money and they're not really well-to-do countries, so they're like, okay, maybe we need this kind of money, so let's just sign these kind of things. But the sham or the scam only comes to light much later when you see that, oh, whatever they promised, their end of the bargain, they're not keeping that up.
Yeah, and I think this is what I mentioned in the beginning of this topic. is this is they are covering like vital rainforest. That means forests that already exist. And but how are they quantifying? Because if the forest already exists, how are you buying carbon credits off it? Because I always thought that you need to be planting new forest or planting new trees in order to take credit from that. That is what I understood. But if they're going a one step further, because okay, planting trees is difficult, so let's just commoditize the available trees, um, and let's sell carbon credits off of that, which is like, any sane person with normal common sense would immediately say this is a scam. This is just greenwashing. That is the term for it. Um, and yeah, because at its core, like if you remove everything, at its core, it sounds like a decent idea. Like, planting trees and sharing those with people who don't have the means or the access to planting trees. But nothing good can exist in a capitalistic society. So, even something as good intentioned as it might be has been commoditized and has turned completely into a sham,
Yeah.
which is, yeah, which is
In
a,
That is true. In this article, it basically says the three entities that approach the indigenous representatives in Brazil are Biota, a family-run cooperative from Argentina, peddling herbal products and nature-based solutions; Biota Pass, a related climate tech startup registered in Spain and the subject of a criminal case; and their Brazilian fixer, and I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's COMTXAE, I think COMTXAE, which used to provide satellite internet and solar panels to indigenous villages and nonprofits. So they all came together and then they did this. And basically, they just signed this contract, a 118-page 10-year contract, that we are going to give you nature-based solutions, in the form of carbon sequestration to produce and increasing the biodiversity. These are all the promises that were made to them, and none of the promises exist. And they're saying now Brazil is looking, and they have passed a law in December 2024. The agency in charge of these indigenous matters is called FUNAI. But they still are saying that, even though the text is there, it does not provide the necessary guidance to inform oversight of carbon projects in indigenous territories. But this issue is going to be coming up in the COP30 climate summit, the first that is being hosted in the Amazon this year. So let us see if there's some kind of solution that can actually come up where this
yeah.
scamming and shamming can be put to a rest.
Yeah, and from what you read, this company is like a criminal and a scam company inside out. Not even like just for this segment. It's like everything that they're doing is a scam and like a criminal offense. And I think this article also mentions the misinformation that they're spreading as well. So after getting the contract signed, the companies left the indigenous territories in Brazil. We achieved everything, everything, reads a message from Torres to a contact in Spain in December 2022. The message was shared with Mongabe by a former Biorepa stakeholder. But yeah, look at this. Like, this is the playbook. This is basically the playbook. Like, you promise something, and as soon as you get the deal signed and the money in your coffers, you say, okay, we have achieved everything, we are going so good, keep everyone in that, you know and this is like the playbook that most politicians use as well, because they understand that the general public won't have the time to go in and research these things. So yeah, this is a sham. And our discussion question is along those lines as well. Like, when conservation becomes a commodity, how do we protect indigenous communities from exploitation? Um,
I
I
think
think,
one of the main things that we also need to do is that people need to be more aware of when they're signing these carbon credits. Whenever they do something, like, is it actually doing any good? It's like one of those things where you donate money to any place, but if you're not checking, you do not even know if that donation is actually going to the cause that you signed up for, be it the poor people, be it an orphanage, be it animals. If you actually don't take that initiative to know where your money is going, and if it is actually helping, then don't donate. Like, make sure that you're buying these carbon credits, you're making those donations, you go there and check, or you donate to a place where you can be part of it. But don't just click a button that says, okay, offset my carbon credits.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest thing to do, and I can sort of understand the appeal for it. I think there are a couple organizations out there who are doing the really good work. So again, we definitely like, so for the indigenous communities, first off, for the indigenous communities, I think education would be a big part. And I don't know what the literacy level and the education level of these indigenous communities are, but definitely letting them know about the socio-political environment and the larger picture would be a first step in protecting them from these kinds of exploitations in the future. But I also think, in terms of what you mentioned around donations, I think, again, it's a balance there, but it is important because all these NGOs cannot function without the donations. But in lack of you being able to volunteer time for organizations, which I can understand in the urban life, it is very, yeah, the rat race, it's very difficult. Research these companies, thoroughly, who you're donating to, their track record, their financials. These should be publicly available if they're registered
or
NGO.
or at least if they're sending you like regular updates.
Mm,
The thing is, it's your money and you're donating for a good cause. So if you're donating to something that's not even equating to the cause, then why are you donating it? The whole point of donation is that it's doing some good for someone or some
mm.
animal. But if it's not doing any good, it's not it's you shouldn't be doing the donation. So just be sure of the place that you're donating to. Even if you can't give the time to go and overlook where your donation is being used, just make sure that you know that they're worth donating the money to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Cool. Do we want to move on to the next topic then?
Yes. um so the next topic is obviously very, very different from the current topic. So the next topic is basically the shock nets, and we've spoken about this, I think, earlier as well. But now they're actually thinking of a novel solution, not not removing the shark nets, but something in addition to the shark nets. So the article is from The Guardian. It says, twice as effective as nets, shark spotting drones to become a permanent fixture on Queensland beaches. Queensland is expanding its shark spotting drone program after a study found them twice as effective as nets. During a trial, drones detected 676 sharks compared to just 284 caught in adjacent nets. The state government will now make drones a permanent fixture for beach safety. However, controversial shark nets and drum lines will continue to be used despite evidence of their deadly impact on other marine life, including whales, dolphins, and turtles. Surf Life Saving Queensland praised the drones as a superior surveillance tools that allows lifeguards to manage risks in real time by getting a better view of beach conditions. The drones also provide the added benefit of aiding in search and rescue efforts during their patrols. I think this is one of those bittersweet stories, like, because it's really nice that they have these drones. If because it's one of the sharkiest places, and there are surfers that have been attacked before, so it could be a great thing for surfers because there's that surveillance. But at the same time, if you're not going to remove the nets, then what good are those drones if you're still going to trap all these animals into the nets? Just I think last week or within this week, I've seen another news article of a dolphin mom and a baby getting strangled in these nets and dying. So if either once you fix the drones, just take the nets off, because those nets are doing nothing. They do more harm than good to any of the wildlife that comes through those nets.
True, true. But uh, again, I will be the devil's advocate here. If the shark nets are catching like 284 sharks, then I don't know how state government makes the decision of removing them.
Yeah, I don't think it's catching them. They're just saying that it's counting them. They're not supposed to be catching them.
Like deterring.
Yeah, they're supposed to be like deterring them, but the whole point of the shark nets is basically, how we spoke about it, that are not there across the beach, so they're there in areas, and then there's like a space, so these wildlife can come through, but they get caught like while trying to go back, or they kind of like caught in it, like it's like one of those things where you see this fly come in through a small hole, but then it doesn't know how to get back through the same exit, or if there's another exit they don't know, so it's trapping them. So the
Yeah,
trapping.
which has always surprised me. Like, how are you coming in through that crack in the window, but then when you want to go out, you're just, you know, um, their navigation is supposed to be pretty good. Like, how are you just uh getting banged up everywhere other
But
than the crack in the
I
window?
wait. So you're blaming the flies. If you drive to an area once, you're so lost you don't know how to get back to your own home, which might be just 10 minutes away because you've taken like four lefts and five rights. But I mean, we can't blame them. For them, it's as big as
I mean,
probably
their
the same area.
navigation is supposed to be superior than us.
Yeah, it's
That is what
probably,
I'm saying.
so if we compare, probably it is better. But then I mean, we just as lost. We just have more tools. They don't have like a mapped, exit and entry points. But despite that, I mean, what I'm talking about is that these nets have shown to be more dangerous than useful. So now, if the shark drones have, if the drones have been found to be extremely useful for surveillance, it's actually great, because one, it doesn't harm any of the marine mammals or marine animals, and secondly, it also like provides some safety for the surfers who are probably on the edge with, if there's a shark in the ocean nearby. So the drones are great because it's one of those ways where you can coexist with everything that's in the ocean, because it is their home, and we have that privilege to go into their home for a bit. So we shouldn't be deterring them. We should be cautious ourselves. And the drones are a great way of doing that.
Yeah, and I think the listeners won't know this, but um Meghna and I and all with all my friends, I have these frequent conversations where I'm not absolutely not a fan of AI. I'm you could almost say I'm very against AI in general for general purpose uses. I'm very against it for day to day, writing essays or writing things like that. Repetitive things like, summarizing and, doing some maybe web research. That is something where AI shines. But this is also an area where AI shines and AI can be immensely helpful. And I think there was some articles from India, which we didn't have the time to cover in those episodes. I think a couple months ago as well, where AI was being used to detect elephant crossings in railway tracks. Railway, train collisions are a big reason for elephant deaths in certain parts of India. So AI was being used to spot these elephants and operate the signaling, train signaling in a more efficient way where these collisions can be avoided. So this is where AI shines. This is a great use of autonomous agentic AI systems, and I think this trial, like, it's a very positive sign that this trial is being accepted as a permanent, fixture. Um, and I think this would just increase. The fleets would increase because Queensland is one of those places where almost every beach has had multiple shark attacks. And Australia in general, I feel like.
Yeah, but I think so the thing is there are a few things. Obviously, one, and we've spoken about this before, especially with sharks, that they are demonized. So they are villainized and they're painted in a way that people are meant to hate them. That if you've seen a shark while diving, or if you've seen a shark, yeah, mostly diving or snorkeling, you would know that they are really calm. So until they're not in a hunting mode, or they're not in a way that you come across as food for them, or you provoke them, or or someone is spear fishing and they want the same fish, they would not attack you. So they do not attack brainlessly. So these surfers and the attacks that are also there, like shark attacks kill, I think, 10 people per year or lesser, but humans kill way more humans than that. But still, people want to be careful. People are wary of the ocean. People are very wary of the ocean because they do not know what's coming from where, and people don't like to not know. Like, I think a lot of people, I know, are don't want to take up swimming, or don't want to go up in don't want to go into the ocean, for the fear of the unknown. For that, and I think these drones, they're a great way for that. I mean, people just feel will just feel more secure, that okay, there's a drone flying about, they know if there are any sharks in the area. Okay, let me just go in. If there's something, they will raise the alarm. So I've just shared the article as well on the screen,
Mm.
the Guardian article.
There is another side to it as well, and I sure hope that the government is looking at that and making sure that that side is taken care of as well, which is privacy. Because obviously, in a beach setting, if you're using a drone with a camera, the privacy of those footage, because inadvertently, the humans would be caught, caught in the camera there. So
Yeah, but
yeah,
I
that
mean,
is another concern that a lot of people might will have, not might, that will have. You know,
yeah,
what if these drones are being used for human monitoring as well? We
but
don't
tell
want
me
that, right?
this. Yeah, but tell me this. Like, I mean, if the drones are flying that high up and they're supposed to be actually monitoring the ocean part of it, not the beach part of it, but the ocean part of it, why would they want to focus on the humans or anything? I mean, the entire purpose of those drones is not to focus on the
Look,
humans, right?
government likes surveillance.
Yeah, that is true. That is
All
true.
governments around the world loves to surveil not only their own citizens, but everyone. So, you know, you can never trust that intention. If you have that, and now technology is such that, the cameras are so high resolution, even from, you know, God knows how, even the consumer level drones, the retail drones that are available, you have a drone, I have a drone, their quality is like amazing, the video quality, and of course they can be used for, just change the angle a little
But
bit, don't focus on the
I
scenery.
think that is the problem with everything that we do. There's always a but. Like, this is great, but what if we use it for this? And it's actually amazing how we actually focus on or want to do those but things, like, oh, the drones are great, it would help the people, but there'll be like one or two probably, or maybe some sneaky people somewhere who would use the drones in a bad way, and then that would probably lead to a question on the efficacy of this method. And humans are so capable of that. Like, everything will be going great, and then one but, and then everything goes for a toss.
Yes, that's and the reason I mention it is, as you just said, that can potentially, like, make us go back in the other direction and just let the shark nets be there, because people will be like, okay, surveilling me and harming my privacy is obviously, everyone is going to. I mean, even if I was asked, my privacy versus, a shark, I would obviously choose myself.
Yeah, but
So
but at the end of the day, if you're going to choose, it makes complete sense to choose privacy. But I think there just needs to be more regulations on how these drones are used.
exactly,
But
exactly,
people would obviously want that kind of, what would you say, that safety umbrella, knowing that there's a drone surveilling above you in the water. So if there's something, then you would be sounded about it. Um, because
exactly.
I mean, shark attacks usually, mostly, always happen in these shallow areas where the surfers are, because sharks think that the surfers look like seals to them. So from below, and because sharks don't have great eyesight, you just look like they're meal to them, and which is why they would attack you. And that is why, where you actually need the surveillance, because in the deep ocean, or when you're going diving and the sharks can actually see you in front of them, they know that, oh, you don't resemble anything close to their meal, but on the surface you do. And this is why
I have a question. Like,
hmm,
I don't know if we have the answer to it, but the question is, isn't shark like aren't sharks supposed to be primarily like their primary sense isn't it supposed to be olfactory, like their sense of smell? Like if
no,
they
no,
can't see it,
it's not
but they
smells.
can smell it.
No, no, it's not smell. It's basically they have these electroreceptors on their nose, and
Okay, but they should be able to see that the electrical signals, the static electricity this human is emitting is vastly different from a seal.
no, but the thing is that so first, when they come from below, the first thing that they see is that you represent something close to a seal to them, like from below. So for them, you look very close to whatever they eat. It's only
No,
when
but
they come.
if the primary sense is not vision for these sharks, wouldn't the sharks rely like a bat would rely on their echolocation more than their eyesight, because their eyesight is non-existent and can't work in without the lights. So I am so surprised every time I hear this, because I know this. I know this is the reason that is stated, but I am very curious every time I hear this, because if your primary sense isn't something, wouldn't you not use that to
Yeah, but
identify your
see,
prey?
I think the smell and that travels in the water is very different. Probably a smell that wafts through the air. Because
No, but
I've
you would know the smell of your prey.
Yes,
You would know the smell of your prey, and you would know this is not that. So
but you
why
would
would I approach that?
but you would come very close and only then know. So with sharks, because the eyesight isn't great and the smell is, but you would come really close. One, they're obviously on their electroreception. So whatever reception, or whatever, what do you say, the electric pulses that we are generating when they detect us is probably similar to what the seals are sending, maybe because of however our blood circulation is tuned. So that is the first thing that brings
That
us
could be
close.
the only explanation. That could be the only explanation, which I don't think is very likely, because
No,
everyone,
no, they
every
do say it is there that the final attack that a shark does is based on its electroreception, which is the electrical fields that it detects close to the prey. When
hmm.
yeah.
So I, yeah, I feel like they're very
So
either very
even though,
dumb
see,
creatures, or
no, they're amazing creatures. But the whole point is we are dumb because we are on the we're on the surface of the ocean, which we're not meant to be, right? It's not our home; it's their home. And whatever stays on the surface is usually seals for them. The ones that are floating in the ocean wherever they catch prey, the ones that are floating on the surface. So you cannot call them dumb. We are the dumb ones because we get into their areas. So you know how we say that, oh, birds are so dumb, why do they keep striking into these glass? That's because they're not used to glass is not natural for them. So when something's not natural, it's not them being dumb, it's us
no,
trying
but
to
if
force them
something
into
is
something.
not natural for me, if something is not natural for me, wouldn't I just avoid it?
No, you
I
can't
would just
avoid it
avoid it.
because no, you cannot avoid it because you do not know. You do not know, right? Till you do not have any. So, okay. So that way, so these people, the story that we just spoke about, so would that make the people dumb for signing those contracts? No, because they just did not know any better that those contracts or those carbon credit contracts were a sham or a scam. I mean, humans are scammed every day. So, I mean, in the sense that we're probably the dumbest of them. We would be scammed yesterday, and we would still be ready to be scammed today. So, I mean, when you do not
No,
know, you do
but
not
but
know.
but the argument is that if something looks like a lion, even if it is like how our adrenaline receptors get triggered, even when a branch falls from like a dark in a dark night, thinking that it could be a snake, and we would stay away from it. I'm just saying that.
No, but
Like, if
I'm
I don't
saying
know something, I wouldn't approach it. I would first
no, no,
assess it
no,
with all my senses and then approach it.
no. But
That is it a
I'm
prey?
saying no.
Is it worth eating? Is it my meal? You
No,
know?
no, 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 no. So there are two things now. Like this is the equivalent of if you had chicken biryani, but on the roads they actually have crow biryani with crow meat. You wouldn't be able to tell if it is crow or chicken meat just because it looks very similar to you. So this is the equivalent of that. So you can be scammed with crow meat for chicken meat. It is similar to that for a shark, that you're being scammed because you look
No,
like a
but
seal to them.
you that crow meat is being cooked in a way with spices because it's masking. If you're asked to eat those meat raw, I am
But you don't you
100%
don't eat
sure.
any. No, no, no. The whole point is you do not eat. I mean, you look at it and you get scammed, right? So it is the same way for a shark. Think about it this
But
way: they
everything
cannot
is
see.
raw with
No,
sharks. Nothing is being
yes, but they
cooked.
cannot see. But the whole point is they
Like
cannot see, right?
like
So they cannot see.
nothing is being masked. We are not masking their sense of any, like, their primary sense. That is what I'm
So
saying.
there are okay. So there are two, three things. Obviously, one, obviously, there's a the smell in the ocean is very different. Two, obviously, they're using their sight first, right? But their sight isn't great, so they're using their sight first, and you look similar. So like just like the crow
That is
and the
exactly
chicken,
my question. Why are they using their sight?
they will
Like,
have to
if
use
they
their
can
sight.
smell a drop of blood from 2 miles away or 5 kilometers away, why would we want to, like, why would such an animal use to want, like, I'm just trying to understand, why would
No,
such an
wait, wait,
animal with
wait.
a
The
such
whole
a
blood
keen
thing.
sense of smell, why
You
would I want to use
no,
my
you do know. Wait,
non-primary
wait, wait.
sense?
You do know that the whole blood thing is a myth, right? Like when you cut your hand in front of like 20 sharks, they just don't care. So I've had my hand cut over a coral once during very turbulent waters, and then there were 20 to 25
So, okay,
sand
okay,
tiger
let's
sharks.
let's let's okay, I'll say that that is a myth.
Yeah, I
That
mean,
is a myth.
I've literally had my blood
So
flowing
you're
through, and
saying
they did not
the
care.
the electrostatic signal that is on the surface is different than what is in under the water. It
No,
cannot
no,
be
no, no,
true.
no, 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 no. What I'm saying is it doesn't just, so its sense of smell is greater than everything else. That doesn't mean that it is only using that. It uses a combination of everything. It uses vibrations, it uses its hearing, it uses its sight, it uses its smells, and it uses its electric reception. So to say that it uses only its smell is wrong. It's really wrong for you to say that, because for bats obviously they use their echolocation more than their sight, because their sight is extremely poor. With
Even
sharks obviously,
dolphins.
yeah. So for sharks, it's not just that they're using everything. Obviously their smell precedes everything, in the sense that they have better smell than other olfactory senses, but that doesn't mean that their smell is everything for them and they don't have anything else. If they were blind, then I would say that yes, I mean, why are they going for humans? But they're not blind, they have eyes and they look. So they see, then then there's everything. They sense the vibrations, then they smell, then they see the electroreceptor, whatever electroreceptor signals they're getting back from the spray, and that is when they attack. And they also attack quite quickly, if you've seen. So all of this has to be in a few seconds, where they
I
see a
will I
prey.
will I will reiterate I will reiterate my controversial statement that they are pretty dumb.
No, I think you are
Because
pretty dumb.
orcas are not doing that, because orcas eat seal as well. Orcas never attack
No,
humans
no,
in
no,
the
no, no,
wild.
no. Wait, orcas eat a load of other things as well. Okay, orcas eat a load of
But
other things. Uh, no, 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 no,
seals
no.
is
Seals
part
are
of
not.
their diet.
Yes, but it's not the primary diet. For sharks, it is a primary source of the diet. For orcas, they have a lot of other things that they do eat. Maybe in the Arctic and the Antarctic, yes, they do go for seals. But orcas in the warmer weathers don't go for just seals, or wherever these sharks are. They're usually the great white sharks. The great white sharks in specific, where they are the primary feeders of the seals, and they hunt alone, it is very
Yeah.
different from what you would call as a pack hunting and what you would see in a pack. And
No,
even
I
with
mean
orcas, you do.
compared to an orca, because shark is obviously a fish. Compared to an orca, it is very
Okay,
like
but if
smaller
you're comparing,
brained.
if you're wait, comparing it to an orca, that means that you're actually comparing something that has better sight to something that doesn't have
No, no,
good
no,
sight.
no.
So
Better
you're not even
sight. I
putting.
mean, not even better sight. Like a bigger brain to process all the sensory
Sure,
information.
sure, sure. The brain is also
So
there, but
that's
you're
why I'm
also
saying
comparing.
like the sharks are like subpar. They have a smaller brain. They have a smaller processing power. Like a computer. Like a better computer with a larger CPU would
No, no,
be
no.
much
Wait.
faster in
You cannot.
processing things.
You cannot compare two species and say that, oh, this is better than this. No, that is comparing apples to oranges, because sharks have their own beauty and elegance and grace and use in the ocean, and orcas have their own beauty, elegance and grace in the ocean. And orcas can also feed on sharks. Orcas can feed on great whites. They've ripped apart great whites. So orcas are different. They have their own capabilities. They hunt in packs, so they have that advantage. They have different kinds of ways to feed, and they have different versions and different things that they feed on, as opposed to a shark, and especially the sharks that attack and um, you know uh, uh, attack on a human. And also with attacks, if you have ever noticed, there are so many attack stories of, I lost a limb, I lost a hand or a leg. Why do you think this happens? It's not because the shark
No, no, I
attacks
fully
you and then it
agree. I
realizes.
fully agree. I fully agree about that. I fully agree about that. That sharks are not interested in us. They are just attacking us because they are confused in one way or the other. My question is, why the hell are they confused?
Because they're not only depending on their smell, which you think that they do. Their primary sense is obviously that, but that doesn't mean that it
No,
precedes
no, I'm not
everything
saying
else,
what they
and they're
do. No, no,
blind, and they
I,
don't.
I'm not dictating what they should do
They have
or they
okay,
want to
like,
do. I'm not just
okay, I'll
saying
tell you
that.
this. When you.
I'm just
No,
saying
no, no, I'm
that
just
if
telling you.
something is my primary sense, I would use that before anything else to assess if this is a prey, if this is
No,
worth
you
eating, if this
you
is worth
you think that
approaching.
way. You think. No, no, no. You think that way, but you do not think that way, because
The
if
other
humans actually
explanation
gave
can
that
be
much
the
thought,
other
they would.
explanation can be that
If
they're just
humans.
opportunistic.
Wait.
They
If
will just
humans.
eat anything and everything.
No, no, wait. If humans actually gave that much thought, we would not be in such a bad place, and we would not be doing such a podcast with talks about, us destroying everything, and that we need that awareness to save this planet. I'm sorry, but if we were actually that thought resilient,
No,
then
but
we would do a
if
better
we
job.
were no, I'm saying if we
Okay,
were not
wait.
that cautious about food, we wouldn't have reached 8 billion. That is the thing.
Wait.
If we were not cautious
I'm
about food and the dangers in our environment, we couldn't have reached 8 billion population. No way.
wait. Even with food also, when you see food, if you've ever thought about it, they say that you see it, you smell it, you feel it with your hands, and then you eat it. So
Exactly.
there are all these
Exactly.
sensory. Yes. So when you're using four senses, why can't a shark use its four senses? I don't understand why you have that. When it comes to you want to use your eyes also, your
No,
smell
because
also, you
all
want
our
to use your
senses are
touch
equal.
also, and you want to
All
use.
our senses are equal. All our senses are very subpar to all the other animals out there, but all our senses are equal in equal footing. There's no
Yes, but
one
you think
sense
about
that
it.
is
But
overpowering the other. So that's why, and we are very frail
yes,
as animals. So we
but also
cannot
with sharks,
use. We have to use
their
all the senses. We have to use all the
but with
senses.
sharks, their electroreception actually kind of precedes the smell in a lot of ways, which is why the whatever the
Okay, then the
electroreception that they're getting from
electroreception would
us
be
might
their
be
primary
similar.
sense then. The electroreception is their primary sense. So you're saying the electric signals that we emit on the surface is different than the electric signals we emit underwater? So underwater they're not attacking us, but on the surface they're attacking us.
No, that is because it's a combination. That is what I think.
That
I
is
think
my
either
whole
you
gripe
you just.
about the situation.
Yes,
Why has nature allowed such a
exactly.
thing to happen?
No, wait. So the thing is that, one, we do not belong in the water. Two, it doesn't have great sense. First, it will use its it will use its what do you say,
No,
sight
but
over
we do
everything
not
else, right?
belong. We do not belong in the water. But not everything in the water that can attack us is attacking us. Only this one species is attacking us.
Because it is the main predator, bhai. It is the main predator of
Yes,
everything
yeah, that
in
is
the
what I'm
ocean.
saying. Like,
The
why
sharks,
has
the
nature
sharks.
allowed for? Look. The my in my mind, the only explanation can be that sharks are opportunistic, which is fine, which is a proven evolutionary
No, no, no,
adaptation.
no. It is only because you have a bias against sharks, so you feel that way. But you do not even want to understand that sharks are not using just one sense. For you, the sharks are like bats, but sharks are not like bats. Bats use their echolocation over everything else. Even though they're not blind, their eyesight is so poor that they're completely dependent on echolocation, or at least 80%, 90% dependent. That is not how sharks work. Their sight is actually their first thing that they use. That is why when you're underwater diving
That
with
is what
them,
I'm
they're
saying.
able to see you
That is
clearly.
my whole gripe with it. Like, why nature has allowed such a thing to happen only with sharks and not with orcas, not with dolphins, and not with other animals. So that is my whole thing.
Yeah,
Like,
but
you know,
that way you will wait. That yeah. So obviously we do not belong there, so you cannot have a gripe about it. But similarly, you'll have a gripe about, oh, how did nature allow mosquitoes to happen? Now they have their own role in the ecosystem. It is just that we allowed the mosquitoes and cockroaches to become pests by removing all their predators and deforesting their entire space and making big buildings. And now we are like, oh, these pests are here. Let's keep the mosquitoes out of there. Let's keep the cockroaches out of there. Let's keep the
okay,
this. Let's keep the mosquitoes out of there. But when we are going into the water, we are the pests for the sharks, and when we are in on land, we are the pests for everything else.
no,
But
but
we call
only for
them the pests, so
sharks.
we
We are
call
not
them
pets
the
for
problems.
orcas. We are not pets for dolphins. We are not pets for anyone else. Only for the sharks.
Yeah, I think because of the electroreceptors, because the other ones don't have electroreceptors, so probably we are not as electro attractive.
So we are only attractive on the surface and not underwater.
No, we might be electro attractive underwater, but you do not. People are not understanding that they would use their sight first. Underwater, when they look at us, we do not look as attractive as seals to them
Yeah, that is
because there
that
is
is
a
my whole
clearer
problem with
vision
the situation. Like,
than when
why?
okay, if you've been diving, right? You've been diving and you know that your vision when you're looking straight ahead and when you're looking up is obviously very different. How you
No,
would
no, I
perceive
agree.
something
Like,
when it's going up.
I am agreeing that humans are very frail. Our senses are very frail. Our senses, none of our senses are as enhanced as any other animal out there. Like a dog, even like a cat, even. You know, the eyesight. All
And
these
I
other
mean, even
animals will
and
have one
imagine.
sense that is heightened compared to us.
But when if imagine you're underwater, you don't have your goggles. What are you going to see? So it's probably similar like that for sharks. Like they don't have their goggles and they just like looking through really hazy water. Probably like that's how their sight is. So through that haziness, you look like a seal. And then when they're trying to charge at you, your electroreceptor activation is very similar to what a seal would. But when they bite into you, that is when they realize that, oh shit, this is not a seal. It's not tasty enough, so they leave you and go, which is why you don't have a hand or a leg. But they're not only focusing on their smell, they're focusing on a lot of things. So when it comes to, I think, attack or hunt mode, you have to realize that it's not just one thing. For all animals, it's a lot of things. It's not just one thing that they're focusing on, which is probably why a lot of animals would also very stealthily attack humans, like on land. Because they're not only focusing on one thing. They're looking at, okay, the prey. They're looking at how easy it is to get to the prey. Can they get the prey and hunt it down? Can they bring the prey back and then eat it in installments? So it's a lot of things that they think of, and that is the one thing that they have to think of because that is survival for
Yeah,
them.
opportunistic, right? That is called being
No,
opportunistic.
no, it just means that if you see something that looks like prey, then
Like,
you
what would
will
you
you
call
will
it?
hunt it.
It is called opportunistic, being opportunistic and being
No, it is it
testing
is
everything
it
out.
is called, yeah.
Resourceful,
I
being
mean, you can
resourceful.
say, or you can also say that you're just hungry.
Yes, but if I'm hungry, if you are hungry, you're not going to eat a chicken even if you die, are you? Because you're a
No,
vegetarian.
I want, but that is my preference and also
Because you're
knowing.
not
But
opportunistic.
No, but also the same way I've eaten meat by mistake because I've not been told or I wasn't aware of something, or
Exactly. But
despite
if you're
despite
aware, if your
asking.
senses are saying this is meat, then even if it is not meat, you won't eat it.
Yes, but those
Because you're not
senses,
opportunistic. You're not an opportunistic hunter.
that is only because I have the privilege of getting food, right? So there is a difference between me scavenging for food and having the privilege. But despite having the privilege, there have been a lot of exceptions in my life where I did not know, and I've been fed. And it is only, after eating something I would know. So a few weeks back, okay, we had a birthday party, and a friend of mine, not a few months back, probably a friend of mine who is a vegetarian, I asked her to just like get me pizza because I was in the pool, and she got me the pizza. I had a bite, and I thought it did not taste like vegetarian, whatever I had. And I said, "Can you please check?" So she said, um, "I got it from the vegetarian pizza box, but let me check it." And it turned out that some meat eater had put one slice into the vegetarian box by mistake. Whoever must have done it must not have done it on intention. But I only ate a bite, and then I told her to check it out. So you realize that it's the same thing for sharks. There's no way for them to know for sure, because probably the pizza looks similar to them, like we look like.
So you, exactly what I'm saying, you were opportunistic at that time because
I
you were
was
hungry.
hungry, yes.
Yes, because you were hungry, you were ready to eat anything,
No, I was not
right?
ready to eat anything, but I
If
wanted to eat something. But that was in my diet and palate, but it looked so similar to me that I only after I ate a bite or something, the meat that was on it was when I realized that, oh, this is not what I eat regularly. So I asked and I checked, and then I changed. So, I mean, would you call me dumb in that case? No, because I did not know. There was no way for me to know till I did not have a bite. And it's similar for the sharks. They have to take a bite for them to know if this is part of their meal or not, because you look like a pizza to them underwater, like a
no,
seal
no,
also
I'm
looks like a
calling all
pizza.
humans dumb because our senses are very frail. And the pizza is, again, I wouldn't say it's a good example because the smell and the sight is being masked by 500 different spices, and you wouldn't be able to tell whether it's a chicken or it's a piece of mushroom, for example, if
No, oh
it's
my god.
prepped in the same sauce in the same way, or if it's a piece of maybe soy chunk or something like that. You wouldn't be able to tell if it's cooked in the same you know gravy or same curry.
No, we should be able to tell that. If you're not able to tell that,
No, but if
that
it's a small piece, then you can't tell really. If it's a small piece in a curry, in a gravy, you can't really tell if it's a chicken piece or if it's a something
you
else.
you are a meat eater, you should be able to tell out of
No, no,
all the
I
people.
wouldn't be able to tell just by looking at it. I would have to take a taste
Okay,
to
yes,
tell.
yes, okay, yes, yes,
That is what
looking
I'm
at, yeah,
saying.
okay,
Like
yeah.
by
Look,
looking at it, you can't tell.
yeah, by
I
looking
have to
at it,
take a
yeah.
test. Exactly, because it is masked. But for the shark, everything is raw. Everything is emitting the same electrostatic signal what they are emitting on land, on underwater, over water. So yeah,
but I,
opportunistic
but
and
but
being
that's what
hungry, I can agree,
but
but
I
I cannot agree that they're using their primary senses and they are not being able to determine what this
But what
is.
I'm saying is that when you're saying that a chicken or a mushroom or a soy piece, a soy chunk piece can look similar, it's the same thing for them. So we're looking similar to a seal to them. So we look
Yeah.
similar. It is only after they taste that they would
Yes.
know, similar to
At
how
that,
we taste.
so look, there can be two kinds of people who are like, if something doesn't look like the way I want it to look, I won't even touch it, right? And there can be another
Yeah,
sort of
so
people.
there are
There,
sharks like that, right? So there are only
yes.
10 or whatever, how many average 15 shark attacks, and how many sharks are there in the ocean? Like thousands and thousands and thousands of sharks, and some sharks come and attack. So they
So
obviously
these
there are.
sharks that are hunting, and there can be another group of humans who are like, okay, let me try it, like you, because you were hungry. So you were opportunistic at that point, and the person who would reject it, even if it was vegetarian, until they like maybe a religious thing where you want halal meat, you want to absolutely make sure this is halal meat, that kind of thing, you wouldn't even eat if you don't know the source exactly. So you're not opportunistic at that point. So I'm saying these sharks are just opportunistic. That's the only explanation that they would attack if they have such heightened senses as I am led to believe. That is the only explanation to me. But there could be another explanation as well. I don't know.
But I would just think maybe then like 90% of the sharks are religious, as you would put it, because they usually don't go
Opportunistic.
around.
Opportunistic.
No. 90% of the sharks are obviously not. I mean, we do not know how many percentage of the sharks are actually attacking, but most sharks probably wouldn't go. Some sharks that are actually wanting
Yeah,
to
so those are
try.
not opportunistic. They are not opportunistic. And these I mean, evolution does favor the opportunistic hunters. They favor the opportunistic species. So these sharks are just opportunistic, and they are just attacking, and the hunger is takes precedence over everything else. Which is not the case for orcas, which is not the case for dolphins, which is not the case for other carnivores in the
No,
ocean.
but it's not just that. Even though, like, let's say the dolphins or the orcas have bigger brains, it is also what they eat primarily, and it is also their sight and everything. You have to take everything into account. You can't just say that, okay, they're not opportunistic. They're opportunistic as well. If they're not opportunistic, they wouldn't come up with these
Mm.
huge schemes of, getting a seal to slide off its ice flow and then come into the water and eat it. So if they were not opportunistic, they wouldn't come up with all of those grand schemes. So they're definitely opportunistic, but it is just that they have better sense of sight than like the sharks do. So the first and foremost thing that anything would use is the sight, and that is what even we use. That's what you said. Like we would look at something, and if you're not
I would
sure, then
orcas, dolphins, echolocation. I'm pretty sure, not sight, because underwater sight is pretty poor
it
for
is,
everyone.
but I'm saying that okay, so that also there are two things. They have that echolocation advantage, while the sharks have the electroreceptor advantage. But the electroreceptor, for some reason, our electrical signals are probably similar to
Hmm.
whatever the seals are emitting.
Yeah, yeah. I think that could be a good solution. That you know we wear some kind of device which emits like a vastly different signal.
That
That
is, yeah, that's a good
could be a good
idea.
solution as well.
So if we come up with
If
something like that, and it's emitting some other different electroreceptor signals, we can actually test and see if that deters
yeah,
the sharks.
that
That's
could be a
That's a great
great
startup
solution.
idea. Yeah, that's a great startup idea. So if there's anybody from Australia who's seeing this and we're completely weird of the topic, from shark
Which
nets to
we
why
sometimes
sharks,
do.
yeah, from shark nets to why sharks attack humans. Now you have an idea, like why don't you make like these cuffs to be worn by surfers on their ankles, or maybe in the ankle cuffs, that the surfers already have on their
Hmm.
ankle with the surfboards, or in their hands somewhere, some electroreceptor signals that deter sharks. Let's see if the sharks still come close to them, because similar to how we have those mosquito repellents, like they
Hmm.
don't want to come close to the mosquito repellent. So if we can find a shark repellent, then we don't even need to do all the drones. Just wear it, and the shark doesn't come close to you, even the ones that are really hungry and want to try out a new cuisine.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. That was a good discussion. That was a good discussion. I enjoyed it. Cool. We can probably move on to the next topic. Um, where we talk about I think I want to talk about a new species that was discovered. So again, this is again from Australia. So a new Australian native bee was discovered, but there are still hundreds we need to identify, says an article from the Conservation news source. Dr. Kit Pendergast has officially identified a new Australian native bee, Megachill Lucifer. Okay, this is an interesting name. Discovered in Western Australia's Burma ranges in 2019. Oh, is this a old news? Let me see. No, this is a new news article. This fascinating leafcutter bee, whose female boasts distinctive devil-like black horns and a preference for extremely rare pollen, was found during a survey for the critically endangered plant Burma uh,
Bremer,
Marian
probably. Bremer.
Bremer Marienthus. Pendergast's discovery starkly highlights Australia's significant knowledge gap and underinvestment in its unique native bee species. Of course, entomology is one of those things. Insects are generally considered, the very bottom of the ecosystem.
And our
Um,
and our curiosity ladder as well.
on our curiosity ladder, probably as well. When the introduced European honeybee receives considerable attention and funding, of course, because of the all the honey farms and whatnot. What are they called? What is bee farming called? I knew the word just
I
now.
I thought it was just called bee farming, isn't it?
No, there's a word for it. There's a word for it.
Wait,
Um,
let me Google
Hundreds
it.
of other native bees remain unidentified, thank you, and unnamed. The researcher emphasizes the urgent need for much greater focus and resources to properly catalog and understand Australia's rich yet often overlooked native pollinator biodiversity, a truly vital aspect for ecosystem health.
It's called apiculture.
Apiculture, yes, that is the word. That is the word. I was thinking apothecary for some reason. Apothecary is like a medicine shop, but
Yeah.
like traditional medicine shop. But yeah, apiculture. Um, I would just mention one thing here. This is a great discovery, but since this mentioned the plants, the endangered plant species Bremer marianthus, this is a very common or a very usual thing in the natural world where a certain bird or a certain bee is only going to drink the nectar or the eat the fruits of one particular species of plants. So it's a chicken and egg thing where saving the plants means also saving the bees, but you know you have to take care of the bigger picture, not just focusing on the bees and similar. So again, very good discovery and a great statement where the native pollinators is a truly vital aspect for the ecosystem health. Yeah, that was that about the bee discovery.
Did you share a photo with the?
I did not. I can quickly do that now. Uh, yeah, this is the bee. You can see the horns as mentioned in the summary as well. This is the leaf cutter bee. Um, Again, not every bee is a honeybee, so yeah, just you know, just
Yeah,
so
and leaf cutter bees are actually bees that would cut the leaves in a certain way to eat them. So that is
yeah,
why it's called a leaf cutter bee.
sure, cool.
Okay,
We can probably
go
do
to the
another
next
topic,
one.
Meghna.
Yeah. Do you want me to do another species or?
Yeah, you can do that, or you can take up another topic, whatever you want.
Okay, so let me just do another species. A weird spider with no eyes has been found on a remote Atlantic island. Arachnologists are baffled. Researchers discovered two new spiders on St. Helena, an armored goblin spider and an eyeless minuscule spider. This minuscule spider has no eyes and is not cave dwelling, which is unusual for eyeless spiders. The goblin spider has thick abdominal armor. These findings raise the total number of species unique to the small South Atlantic island to 507. Both species were only found in museum specimens and haven't been observed in the wild for decades, suggesting they may be extremely rare or possibly already extinct. So I think this was something that I had to actually ask, oops, because I was really confused with how the article was worded. But it seems to be that once there are species that are sent to museums, then there's research done in the on the species inside the museum, and these are dead species that probably were like discovered and they've been experimented on, which is why it says that in the wild it is possible that they do not exist anymore, or if they do we do not know, or that you know they're extinct. So yeah.
Mm. And I'm just sharing the image as well. The spiders that were discovered. And this is very a unique discovery as well. Not unique, but very interesting discovery, as Meghna said. Like sometimes these museums, and that is the primary reason we collect museum specimens, is that if in the future we want to, we discover that this species is a subspecies or maybe a different family, we have the specimens to experiment on, and DNA kind of lives forever. So yeah, that's an interesting one as well. All right, I will do probably another topic on the wildlife corridors, as I um, spoke about earlier. Um, so this is a report from physics.org. So, reducing the risks of wildlife corridors, it is titled. So, it says new research from the universities of Leeds and Oxford, published in Nature Reviews Biodiversity, underscores the critical role of wildlife corridors while urging caution. And I think we talked about wildlife corridors in depth a few episodes ago as well. But for anyone who doesn't know, these are basically spaces for wildlife to move between mostly man made highways or bridges in the form of underpass and other, mostly underpasses or overpasses, to avoid the human animal conflict in those areas where there's a lot of roadkill or there might be a lot of interactions with wildlife. So give them the safe space to migrate between these highways or um, uh, over bridges. These ecological links are vital for connecting isolated habitats, as I said, promoting biodiversity and enabling species movement, very important, breeding and adaptations. Examples include the European Greenbelt and the Banff National Park's successful wildlife crossings. Yeah, I think Banff National Park, this is obviously in Canada, but this was a big topic or a big point of discussion where they were doing this, you know, overpasses for moose or reindeer, and things like that, and they looked beautiful as well. So, yeah. However, the study highlights potential ecological risks associated with increased connectivity. Okay. Efforts to join habitats, while essential, can unintentionally facilitate the spread of wildlife diseases, such as amphibian I can't pronounce this. Chytridiomycosis,
I guess so.
Chytridiomycosis, yeah, and introduce invasive species. Lead author Dr. Josh Firth emphasized the necessity of incorporating these potential negative impacts into planning by carefully assessing and mitigating these risks. Conservationists can prioritize habitat links that deliver the strongest overall gains for nature, ensuring well-connected world without unforeseen harm. I think we have seen two articles now where these, transfer of diseases is a concern, obviously in Antarctica as well, which is a real concern. This wasn't a concern for me in the forefront of my mind when it came to wildlife and conservation, but now after these two articles, it definitely is one of those things that I will keep an eye out for and I will sort of get the news for. But if
Yeah, and
that is
I think the thing with a lot of things that we do good as well is that we need to also see the impacts that it might have negatively, so that we can be prepared for those negative impacts. So yeah, I mean, oops, probably this, but even in India, when there are like these wildlife or these national parks, when they border these areas next to like the villages or places where they have like stray dogs, when there's interaction between the wild species and these stray dogs, obviously the stray dogs are susceptible or carry these kind of diseases that they can survive with because they're in these human environments. But when they go and they transmit them to these the wild lions or the wild tigers, they do not have the same kind of immunity, and when these diseases get transferred, it's very hard for them to survive. So when mange or other kind of diseases get transferred, it's hard. So these diseases are the main concern. So even with these wildlife corridors, what they're saying is that when it links more movement, it basically links more species to come together, which means that there is greater passage of diseases that can go through species, and that might be a concern and might cause the fall of a species. So that needs to be really taken into account when we do something as great as wildlife corridors.
Yes, and I think this is good, and that's why I feel like research always, different directions, different interests should be very, you know, very very much important, and it should be taken very seriously, because this is the kind of research that will enable us to understand gaps in our knowledge like this. Because obviously, as we have discussed multiple times, we are very bad at looking at everything, looking at all the different effects. The technological improvements, for example, can have, which basically means we have to continuously do that research, to make sure, to validate the solution we have applied is the right solution. And this applies to every field out there. Um, you know, that basically means that we cannot sort of implement something and just say that this is it, this is the end game. Nothing is the end game. Nothing is the end game ever. And more so when it comes to wildlife, because it is not only us, but the entire ecosystem that is sort of connected uh, to the outcome of that particular implementation. So this is this is a very, again, as it says, unforeseen for me personally. But I think we have got two articles this time with, the disease side of things as well. And I think for an outbreak, it is really difficult to control in. I can imagine it being very difficult to control in an animal world, um, and especially if, um, yeah, it's a balance, because if you don't allow the animals to migrate and pass, then you risk the animals getting, inbred and getting like a gene pool that is very, narrow. But at the same time, if you allow them, then you have the risk of diseases and other threats. So yeah, it's a real balance, and
Yeah,
that's our discussion question as well. How do we balance the benefits of wildlife corridors with their potential ecological risks?
I think
um,
that the only way is to be prepared for everything. And this is what we do as humans. Like whenever we come up with some solution, we always only map out the positives of it. We don't map out the negatives. Like we've spoken about this earlier as well. Like, even with plastic or other things. Like when we come up with something that's new and novel, we are like, oh, it's all great, it's all great, it's all great. But nothing is completely positive. Like everything has its own negative, so we need to take that into account whenever we come up with some kind of solution. And we have to find solutions to negate those negative impacts that the net positive um, inventions or discoveries or what do you say, initiatives have. So if we can at least see what kind of diseases this could attract and what ways it is possible to mitigate, then these wildlife corridors are the best thing possible, so that the animals have connectivity and they do not suffer, and they actually can go across habitats but without the risk of disease.
mm, yeah, I think, diseases, again, as I said, it was a very unforeseen thing, but definitely I also feel like continuous research into things, even if we haven't taken something into account before, continuously sort of researching that area and continuously monitoring is another big thing. Like, we have to, we cannot be like, we have implemented this and we are, that is the end game and we are done. We have to continuously monitor if the proposed benefit is what the actual benefit is, and if everything is going according to a plan, basically. And I can understand, like, in certain ways, it's often not possible to look at, and I have said this before as well, it's not possible to look at everything, even with the best of minds. But that's where all the continuous research and monitoring comes in, where if something is going wrong, we need to immediately correct it, and we need to be nimble enough. That's the main takeaway from it. I think such a thing, implementing such a thing and then changing such a thing, I can imagine it being riddled with red tape. So I think that is something we can work on, that these implementations are fast and nimble, but only where fast and nimbleness is required. If something needs to be assessed over a long period, we do not be nimble at that time and do not be agile at that time. We be at the right speed, for as per the requirement. So I
Yeah.
think, as per the situation, basically. um so
I think
yeah, that would be my thought.
with this, at least it's a good start that this article talks about that there can be these kind of these are the buts, like like if we do this there could be this risk. So we'll keep you updated if there is news about how people are planning to mitigate these kind of risks with wildlife corridors, because wildlife corridors is a curse. Sorry, it's a boon than a curse, so it's great for the wildlife. So we are
Yeah.
hoping that there is something where we do not lose animals by creating these corridors. So we'll keep you updated. But oops, do you want to take up like the updates on COP 30?
Yes, I will quickly do that. That is another great thing that is happening. No, I mean, again, one of those things that needs to happen, all the countries in a same room, because there are literally very few conventions around the globe, where all the countries are in the same room. I can also share the link to the article there as well, because this is a article from the Guardian, and the Guardian, I think, are tracking the COP 30 conference live. I'll just quickly share the link in the chats as well soon. But COP 30 live, we will exterminate ourselves if we keep extracting fossil fuels, the activists say. Um, Again, very bold statement, needed to be said, I feel like, but very true statement at the same time. So this article goes on to say international activists are urgently advocating for a fossil fuel treaty, pushing the Brazilian presidency of COP 30 to secure global commitment to phasing out coal, oil, and gas. They warn that continued fossil fuel extraction will lead to self extermination, referencing the insufficient action following COP 28's Transition Away pledge. The proposed treaty, supported by 17 countries, which is a shame, aims to tackle the climate crisis root cause. Meanwhile, the stark reality of climate breakdown is profoundly felt locally, as exemplified by Saul Luciano uh, Liu, Liuya, this Quechua farmer from Peru's Andean highlands experiences extreme climate impacts firsthand, living 3,100 meters near melting snow caps. Liuya faces increasingly challenging farming conditions marked by severe weather shifts, emphasizing the direct human cost and urgency behind activists' global appeal. Um, this is this is again not going in the right direction, I feel like. Some of you might remember the titillating speech that David Attenborough gave at last time the COP was held. And exactly there, the promise was to move away. the pledge, not promise, the pledge was to move away from fossil fuels in general, which has not been, you know, the pledge has not been followed through,
Yeah, and
if you
I
can say that.
and I think we've just spoken about the our cover story, which was the Antarctic one, and it talks about how in the poles or in the extreme weather conditions, the conditions are changing faster than anticipated, and this is what the Quechua farmer from Peru is also highlighting. He's saying that because he lives at 3,100 meters near melting snow caps, he's facing increasingly challenging farming conditions marked by severe weather shifts, which means that the weather is shifting there much faster than what it would shift in a tropical area. And you can see that effect, and that effect can be nullified or at least negated by reducing the extraction of fossil fuels.
Mm. I think we talked about solar, and we sort of went into a debate about solar energy a couple of episodes ago. I think that implementation, I feel like, needs to happen worldwide, because we haven't got a more efficient sort of
Yeah, I feel like with renewable energy sources, the main problem
mm,
is the push. Like there is push from the governments, but there is not as much push from the billionaires that are still focusing on extracting fossil fuels. So if everyone comes together and they want to actually like invest into renewable energy, it will not even be a few years before renewable energy becomes more efficient as well as more attractive than fossil fuels. The main problem is that more people are still focusing on fossil fuels. Like it's a small sector that is still relatively new and niche, so it's not growing at the pace that it should be because there is still not as much alarms ringing as it should be.
and I think the incentives should be from the government, like how government gave huge incentives for buying electric driven cars. Similar incentives is in the within the power of the government to give for individual homeowners, because as it stands
It's
currently,
actually there.
because
It's actually there in India. It's there. So
I I
there's a huge subsidy if you're getting solar panels on your home instead of
that is great, and every country should follow suit, because as it stands right now, because there is not enough demand, there the implementation cost can be huge for solar panels, and because they're so inefficient, you need a lot of solar panels as well, so to power a typical modern urban home. So I think
yeah, I
this is something the government should focus on, and
yeah.
I think this is the reason, because this pledge has not been followed through, and this pledge is the richest country on earth has no intention of following through this pledge. I think that's why they are absent from COP30. They have excused themselves from COP30.
I also feel like it's like a lot of war also happens on fossil fuels still. Like
Mm, mm,
the extraction and the usage of fossil fuels. The entire Iraq war happened on that. The
mm.
entire debate around like why US is posing those extra tariffs that India is because we're still taking oil from Russia. So a lot of wars or a lot of what would
Yeah,
you say?
even the soft war that US is trying to rage on Venezuela, quoting
Is
their presidency, is because of fossil fuels and rare earth
Yeah, so
minerals.
this is where it comes in. Also, I think like Middle East is functioning mainly because of their fossil fuel treasure. So if you want to phase out fossil fuels, we're trying to still think of these big governments and these big countries with all the resources. We're against them saying that let go of fossil fuels and come up with things that are better for the planet. It's a big ask because they would not be ready to do that. That means that you're literally trying to tell them to give up their way of life or their the things that are already precious. So only when renewable energy becomes more precious or equally precious is when people would probably be more attracted into putting money into it because it has so much potential, but nobody wants to actually milk that potential at this point of time.
Exactly. And I think, again, capitalistic society, because we have an established, money maker, the billionaires don't want to move away from that. I think all let me put it this way, all the friendly billionaires, even in our country, the government friendly billionaires in our country are primarily focused on fossil fuels as well. You know, the
Yeah,
uh,
actually, when it comes to renewable sources, even the what would you say, the accessibility is not that great. Like there is not like a proper way to know who you should approach, which vendor, how you should go about it. The process is still very, what would you say, it's not clear, and it's not that easy. So a
it's
lot of
not
people are still.
consumer friendly.
Yes,
Let us
exactly.
put it that way.
Yeah.
And because it is not consumer friendly, I think the government can go one step further to, make sure that they become like a retailer for all these solar panels. And they because now the onus of doing the research is on the users, which a lot of users won't have the time to do all that research and figure out which vendor they should use for solar panels. And also, like, they would like nobody would want to install solar panels and then realize that it is causing more problems, and it is causing more problems with the home circuit or whatever, than it is causing because they didn't research properly. So I think government has that chance and has that opportunity to become those retailers until there is enough demand there, that there are a lot of players in the market and a lot of competition. So
Yeah, and even the billionaires. I mean, if there's one billionaire who's not into fossil fuels, they have this entire big industry waiting for them to actually like enter into, and then put the others into pressure. Like how in India, you remember, like when the telecom sector,
hmm,
data and everything used to be really expensive till like Reliance stepped into telecom, and then they changed the entire face of it, and now we get like, I don't know, it's like 100 GB a month for like what, $5 New Zealand. So it's baffling that we have that potential, but till some billionaire doesn't step up and say that, okay, let me change the industry, it will not change.
yeah, and I think most rich, the rich and wealthy, they are pretty incentivized to not do that because most of their friends are doing that, and they are invested in like fossil fuel stocks and the market and whatnot. Um, so what can we do? I think for those of us who are living in urban spaces, and that is mostly the listeners of this show anyway, we can make those choices with our money, not to put our money in funds that are investing in fossil fuels, or not to make sure the bank we are banking with, we have a full idea of where the money is going, and like you can't really completely sort of avoid that, but again, doing the due diligence and speaking with our money, that is the most quick thing we'll do, and then speaking with our vote
Yeah.
as well.
See, I know that we say a lot that it starts from us, but it has to start from us. Sadly, even though we want like the governments and the billionaires and the big conglomerates and the corporates to make changes, um, it also depends a lot on our demand and supply. So, if we are going to demand more of renewable products, or if we are going to demand more of answers, and we're going to demand a responsibility for carbon credits, then it is going to show up, and then they're going to have to make changes. So the change from us, it would escalate to that level.
I'm very very agreeing in agreement of that. And um it is great that if that could go parallelly in an ideal world, it would go parallelly, government going and we doing our part as well. But unfortunately that is not the case. So again, whatever is not super intrusive for you, I can understand an unique situation where you have to be invested, or you have already invested without knowing, and you have to be invested in that portfolio, or you have to be invested, you have to bank with that bank, or you have to vote, or you've already voted for someone who served your other interests and not this one. Um, because human interest problems are very ubiquitous all over the globe. So obviously that will take somewhat of a precedence over the other things. But it is time. It is time. Like, it is high time. I think it is past that time when we have to pay attention if we want to survive as a species. And you can be like, okay, I want to die. I just don't want to do anything with the earth. So and all the species that inhabit this beautiful space. Or you can be like a you know interplanetary thinker who will like, oh, we are going to Mars, so one of our billionaires will take me to Mars. So you can be like that and live in a utopia. But if not, then definitely try to speak with your money. I know, for me, I have recently made some changes for my Kiwi Saver that is equivalent to Provident Fund. In New Zealand, I've made changes, like I've shifted companies for that. I unfortunately do have some investments that are tied up long term, which are sort of investing down the line into fossil fuel sectors. But I am sort of determined to change that as soon as that term expires. And yeah, but all the new investments that I make, I am trying to do my due diligence as best as can.
Yeah, so I think it does come down to us. Sadly, our generation has more burden for these kind of things, especially the
Mm,
climate and the environment. And we need to speak up, we need to talk, we need to discuss, and we need to make those changes. As hard as it may be, we are the flag bearers for our generation and the generations moving forward. The generations moving forward would probably have to have even more responsibilities than us. So if you're one of those people who are like, oh yeah, I just have like 20, 30 years left, let me just enjoy. Okay, that's one way to live, but you have to also see what you're leaving behind. So
mm.
try to make more sensitive decisions, like Earp said. But yeah, before we kind of close for today, I have a question for the viewers. Like, do you believe in carbon credits? Have you used them? And today, did our discussion bring some awareness into carbon credits? What are your steps going forward? Like, how are you going to mitigate your carbon credits and actually do something that has an effect? Like, what kind of donations are you looking into, and what kind of changes are you going to do for the environment in terms of renewability or any other thing, like renewable energy sources or usage, or even like life plans? Do let us know. We always want to hear from you.
Absolutely. And as always, do not forget to subscribe to our channel and follow us on all the different social media handles. It's on your screen. It should be in the descriptions. Yeah, it should be pretty easy to find on the internet as well. That really helps. Leave a comment, as Meghna said. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. And if you're listening to a recorded version of this podcast, I was just checking the analytics the other day. Seems like there is a lot of people that are listening to the recorded version of this podcast. Almost like 100 to 150 unique listeners every episode. So keep doing that, guys, but also consider leaving us a rating. I know it's repetitive to ask every time, but really helps a lot. And do share this podcast with your friends and family. But other than that, that's it for today, and we shall see you next Sunday. Same time, same channel. Have a good one, guys.
Bye bye.